Thank you. Member for Blain. Any other speakers? No other speakers? Member for Blain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to support this bill. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the family of Linford Feck. My mother, for many years, collected their unsold vegetables for our chickens, and they were truly a friendly local grocer. I attended on Saturday the candlelight vigil with many other members from this House and the member for Nightcliff last Saturday, and gave my condolences to Ben and Lynn's wife, Margaret. At the vigil, Margaret called for no anger in the community, and I support that call. The community is hurting. I've been inundated with, feedback and pleas from my community members for strong action. Now, some of them have been probably too far, and I won't detail those in this House, but I think it is very important that we urge calm on the community and to not respond out of anger, and instead to carefully consider the ongoing problem here and address the short and long-term issues, which our government is doing. When this news first hit, it reopened the wound that was caused by the slaying of Declan Laverty. And I give my condolences. I acknowledge that Samara Laverty is here in Darwin with us today and was in the chamber earlier. Thank you, Samara, for coming up, and any support we can offer you in this hard time with the re-traumatisation we will offer. But this incident, the tragic death of Linford Feck, has reopened all the wounds that the community experienced when Declan was slain. And I want to make a key distinction. After the slaying of Declan Laverty, people were calling for action. Not violence, but action, and particularly action from the government as their elected representatives. And they didn't see it, Mr. Speaker. And this proceeded and until a quiet and respectful protest was held at the front of this building, which I attended and some of my colleagues on this side of the House. And there was some dispute about the numbers that day, but I tell you what, the forecourt in front of Parliament House was absolutely chockers. That thing was full. And that was in response to a perceived lack of action by the government of the day. Eventually, they did come through with probably the bare minimum, some action on knife crime and some very, very limited wanding powers. But this government is not like that government. This government will listen and respond to deal with the issue. So this tragedy occurred last week. Here we are today, already in Parliament, with legislation drafted, ready to be debated, ready to be passed. And I'd like to thank the Leader of the Opposition and the member for Nightcliff in their pledges to support this bill, which will increase community safety and indeed make community safety the overarching principle that judges should consider when they have a bail application before them and they're considering whether to remand in custody or to release into the community someone who's alleged to commit an offence. That is action, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, my apologies. That is action. Here we are. To my community, I say we are listening to you, we are responding, and we will continue to respond until you feel safe. This is not the end. This is just the next step. I'd like now to speak about another matter which has been very traumatic for me. Trevor Miller of Woodruff. So on Wednesday the 2nd of April, I think we'd just come out of Parliament, at about before 8 a.m. in the morning, I started receiving messages about a potential break-in at Trevor's house. By the time I got around there, so Trevor, as you might know, is a pillar of one of the seniors associations in the Palmerston and rural area. He's someone who has given of himself as a volunteer to the community for many, many years, at least 10 years. He just, sometimes you'd almost say he gives too much. But he's a great guy who's just given to the community and helped without asking for anything, without regard to himself, for many, many years. And this poor guy was broken into by two alleged offenders who carried an edged weapon, reported in the media as allegedly being a machete, and he was brutally assaulted. I visited Trevor in hospital several times now. The first time he was in ICU after spending a full day going through plastic surgery, reattaching nerves, reattaching tendons, reattaching muscles, and potentially reattaching one of his fingers that was partially detached. He was in a horrible way. And the most recent visit, he's looking better, but he's still in a really rough situation. He still can't eat with his mouth. He has to be fed through a tube inserted into his nose. This is the consequence of violent offending in our community. Now, it's been reported in the media, and I'll be careful with my comments because this is a live matter, that one of the offenders and potentially the main offender was on bail at the time. Allegedly, thank you, was allegedly on bail at the time. And the reporting in the media, which I won't go into now, goes into the number of bails that this person was allegedly on. Now, that is before the courts, and so that person has, they're innocent until proven guilty, and that whole process will flow, and the facts will eventually come out in full. But this has happened too many times. Too many times that we hear about some horrific thing happening. An innocent person, a worker, in their place of employment, through no fault of their own, has been brutally assaulted, or indeed in their own home. Now, if that was a first offence, or an offence by someone who was free to walk around the community, you could understand that. Crimes happen, people make decisions of all types. But when it's someone who has a pattern of offending, and when it's someone who has been before the courts and there's been an opportunity to keep the community safe from someone with a pattern of offending, that really drives my community crazy, and it drives me crazy. And so that's why I'm proud to be here and support this bill, because any steps we can take which will keep the community safe. If someone is accused of committing an offence, and I know a few people who've been accused of committing offences and were arrested and spent some time in a watch house, and they received bail, and some of them for quite serious alleged offences. When they went to court, they were eventually found innocent. So I do support people's entitlement to the consideration of bail. But a first offence, on someone with a clean record is one matter. If you have someone that the prosecution the prosecution alleges is an unsafe risk to the community, if they're granted bail, then really we need to support our judges to be able to make that determination and keep the community safe. We need to make sure that the legislation is fit for purpose so that the judges can meet the community expectation. And I'd like to thank Chief Justice Michael Grant for helping us out by commending our government for backing our police and pointing out clearly the next steps that needed to be remedied in the Bail Act. So thank you. And we will continue to give our judges the support they need in legislation to keep the community safe. This legislation that's before us today is strengthening Declan's Law. Now, Declan's Law was not the final piece in the puzzle, it was the first piece in the puzzle. It was the first step of a new government coming to power in its first tranche. And this bill strengthens Declan's Law. One of the things, in my maiden speech in this House, I spoke about my motivations for putting my hand up to represent the people of Blain. In the interests of time, I couldn't go into all of them. But one of the key things that motivated me was the procession of laws that were passed by the then Gunner Labor government, which watered down the Bail Act, removed consequences for young offenders. So I welcome this bill that strengthens the Bail Act, that strengthens the Youth Justice Act, that works to keep the community safe and give our judges the legal framework they need to keep the community safe. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I commend this bill to the House.
Thank you, Member for Blain.